executive compensation to 20 times the salary of their lowest paid worker. You know, this is a free country. Corporations can pay their executives whatever they want, but we don't have to give them a tax deduction for it. Our values and goodness are not reflected by a government which violates international law in its conflicts and denies its own citizens their constitutional rights. I have therefore ordered the release of all those being detained without charge, the closure of the prison at Guantanamo Bay. We'll find somewhere else for Bush and Cheney, don't worry. And the end of the rendition program in which suspects are kidnapped and taken to secret foreign prisons to be tortured. I've pardoned a host of political prisoners, including Leonard Peltier, Mumia Abu Jamal, and Border Patrol agents Campion and Ramos. I'm also pardoning all those incarcerated for possession or use of marijuana. The failed war on drugs is over. All contracts for mercenaries, including all contracts with Blackwater, or as they call it now, Z, all these contracts are being canceled. This includes contracts with the DoD, the CIA, the State Department, and the Department of Homeland Security, which, by the way, is being abolished.
There you go.
Our values and goodness are not reflected by a government which promotes a globalization which depresses living standards at home and allows corporations to destroy the quality of life in banana republics and client states all over the world. The WTO, the IMF, and the World Bank have caused untold suffering. If we can't reform them, we will abolish them. With respect to our relationship with the government of Mexico, I have ordered the cancellation of the Security and Prosperity Partnership or North American Union, abandonment of plans for a NAFTA superhighway, which would have cut Texas in half along I-35, and which it would have put nearly all American longshoremen and truckers out of work. And third, suspension of NAFTA completely until Mexico gives its workers union rights, protections for safety, health, and the environment, and wages at least matching the U.S. federal minimum wage. From now on, globalization will mean raising living standards in developing nations to match ours, not the other way around.
Yes.
Our values and goodness are not reflected by a system in which all our personal income taxes go to pay interest on a staggering national debt created out of thin air. The Constitution authorizes Congress to coin our money, not a private cartel. I ask Congress to eliminate the debt-based monetary system and to pass legislation abolishing the Federal Reserve. Our values and goodness are not reflected by a government which launches unnecessary wars of aggression. Consequently, I have asked the UN to send peacekeepers to Iraq and Afghanistan to do a job we simply can't do as an occupying army. You can't win an occupation. Whether or not the UN complies, within 3 months, we're going to support what's left of our troops by bringing them home while they're still alive. I've also ordered a permanent halt to the use of depleted uranium weapons. They will be destroyed and stored as the dangerous radioactive waste they really are. Our values and goodness are not reflected by a government which uses our money to train death squads in the techniques of torture, intimidation, and assassination. The School of the Americas, by whatever name they choose to call it, is closed. Our values and goodness are not reflected by a government which gives most favored nation status to the butchers of Tiananmen Square and places an illegal secondary embargo on the impoverished people of Cuba. The embargo of Cuba just ended. Now, I recognize that we need advance information on activities of Al-Qaeda and others who wish to do us harm. But our values and goodness are not reflected by, and our security is not enhanced by, an organization that promotes instability, insurrection, tyranny, torture, terrorism, murder, and war around the world in our name and with our money. John F. Kennedy and Jimmy Carter tried to reform the CIA so it would stick to gathering intelligence. They failed. I'm not going to try. As of this moment, I am abolishing the CIA. Our values and goodness are not reflected by a government which sends its working class youth around the world to kill the sons and daughters of working people in other countries. Our values and goodness are not reflected by sending our children to the Middle East to kill Arabs so the oil companies can profit from selling the oil under other people's sand, making us the target of terrorists. No more Iraqs, no more Kosovos, no more El Salvadors. These are not isolated incidents of stupidity. They're part of a long, bloody history of foreign policy being conducted for the financial benefit of the wealthy few. It's a new form of colonialism. It violates our Constitution. It endangers our national security. It mortgages our future. It sacrifices our children. And it will never happen again. As president, and I intend to make this permanent because it is constitutional, I will use the men and women in our armed forces to protect our borders and our people. Period. End of report. They will not be used to protect the financial interests of Bechtel, Folgers, Chiquita Banana, Exxon, and Halliburton. This one change in military mission, eliminating the mission of protecting the global financial interests of multinational corporations, will allow us to greatly enhance our national security and at the same time reduce our defense budget by 80%. This will be a step toward fiscal responsibility. I've ordered the Secretary of Defense to begin an immediate recall of our forces all around the world. Think of it, after 64 years, the occupation of Germany and Japan has finally come to an end. With the exception of small Marine detachments guarding our embassies, all our military will be home within 3 months, and all overseas bases will be returned to the host countries. Now, needless to say, there will be no nuclear attack on Iran. My new special envoy to the Middle East, Jimmy Carter, will be meeting with them to solve our differences. And once he's finished there, he will straighten out the Israelis and Palestinians. Our values and goodness are not reflected by a government which for decades has been in violation of its treaty responsibilities to disarmament. I've therefore ordered a halt to the design, testing, and production of nuclear weapons, and have directed the Secretary of State to open negotiations toward the rapid and total abolition of nuclear weapons. I'm unlikely to get there with you, but like Brother Martin, I have been to the mountaintop, and I have seen the promised land. What I have seen is an America in which every person, regardless of their race, creed, color, age, or sexual orientation, is valued and lives in dignity. Every person is cared for, and every person is free to reach his or her full potential. It's an America in which every family can be supported by one wage earner with one job paying a living wage. It's an America in which health care is provided to all as a right through a